Okay, good morning and welcome to today's Board of Utah County Commissioners meeting. We are, we are grateful for your attendance here with us today. As always, we like to begin our meetings with a prayer, reading, or thought, followed with the Pledge of Allegiance, and look to those in the audience to participate with us in that. Are there any who would be willing to lead us in the prayer, reading, or thought, or the pledge? Thank you, Ben. Is there anyone who'd like to lead us in the pledge?
Oh, Sergeant, Chief Deputy Higley, not Sergeant.
Chief Higley.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this opportunity we have to gather together. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy and for the rights and privileges that we take advantage of every day. We're grateful for the servicemen and women that protect us. Please bless them. Bless thy spirit to be with us. Help us to make good decisions and be patient with one another. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for your volunteering and participating with us in that. We'll now go through the process of building our agenda. All items will be considered moved to consent unless held for further discussion. On our consent agenda, we currently had 14 items. Were there any items on consent that had questions or further discussion?
Not for me.
On consent, sorry, page here. Consent agenda, let's see. Number 12 and 14, I don't have anything on there, any agreement or summary.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why I haven't caught up on all my emails yet.
okay.
At 12 o'clock.
Okay.
We could certainly, I don't believe that 12 is time sensitive. So courts is not down here. Robert, do you know if that one is time sensitive? Because we could certainly continue that for a week.
Brian, can you twist that one? You know, I'm not sure if it is. I think it was necessary, but
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
not sure if it's time sensitive.
Okay, I'd be fine continuing that for a week, so you had a chance to see that.
Okay, if we could continue 12 for 1 week, and if we have the documentation on the summary, I'm fine with that.
And we do. Okay, moving to our regular agenda outside of our closed meetings, we had six regular agenda items. I had 2, 3, and 5 to be held. Were there any additional?
Could we table number 4 for just discussion in the closed meeting?
Yes.
Well, let's see, and then I think we got all the stuff from Matt, number 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine
You're
with
fine
6.
with that one? Okay, perfect. Are there any general comments to items that were moved to consent? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move to regular agenda item number 2. This is to look at adopting or denying an ordinance to amend section 3-2 of the Utah County Land Use Ordinance related to proposed exemption to require yard space for freestanding solar energy systems. Bryce, if you'd like to go ahead and give us an introduction and overview of this particular item.
Bryce Armstrong, Community Development. So if you recall, this matter was actually referred by the commission to the Planning Commission for a look at our setback requirements as it relates to specifically solar pedestals, solar arrays pertinent to a dwelling. Several months ago, I think it was the first of this year, we had a similar text amendment that was related to generators, HVAC equipment, or AC equipment. And our section 3-2 of our land use ordinance requires that the setback area to be clear from the ground to the sky. Then it provides several exceptions, equipment that I've mentioned, fences, pools, those type of things. And so it was requested that we also include an exception for ground-mounted solar arrays. Most people attach those to their roofs, but we do see them occasionally as a standalone system. And so this ordinance, text amendment creates that exception, limits that system in size and height to kind of help address potential impacts on neighbors. Generally, this isn't, in the county, it's not going to be a huge impact because of the nature of our lot sizes. We do have some subdivisions that are smaller. The Sundance area was the reason for that generator one. Some of those are little smaller sizes. So we want to take into account the potential impact on neighbors. So it's been proposed that the height be limited to 12 feet, the surface area of the actual panels be limited to 1,000 square feet. We've looked at some other city ordinances, we've looked at some research on these systems, tried to provide enough capacity to serve some of the larger homes that we'll see in the county, and we feel that that 1,000 square feet of solar panel surface should be adequate. Again, this is just limitations within the setback. And then it was requested that we provide an exception to allow some little bigger sizes under certain conditions, and those conditions are stated there at the second half of that exception in red, that if they share a common property line, side or rear common property line with a governmental entity and they receive written consent, that limitation on surface area may be waived, I guess.
Perfect.
So that's a brief summary of that.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this one?
No.
Seeing none, any general public comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt an ordinance as stated in regular agenda item number 2.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. Next up, we have regular agenda item 3. This is to adopt or deny an ordinance amending section 3-11-9 of the Utah County Land Use Ordinance to delete the term Class B. Peggy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Peggy from Community Development. Just as a brief history of this change that we're doing today, in the Land Use Ordinance, it is required that commercial establishments, dwellings, different types of uses front on a paved public road. And in section 311, we have exceptions to that rule. In 2010, an ordinance was passed and it added subsection 9 to these exceptions for mining operations so that they could just front on a county road and it would not be paved. This puts our mining operations further away from populated areas. And in the past, we've had a number of those mining operations in those areas. In 2016, we were looking at all of our county roads and we were updating those maps. So in conjunction with updating those maps, we went through our land use ordinance, and to be consistent, we took the term county road and changed it to county class B road. Not in every area, but in most of the areas. This section of the ordinance was not looked at clearly enough at that point in time. So essentially what happened, it took county road, changed it to county class B road, and in effect, it defeated the whole purpose of having the exception for the mining operations. So this text amendment would clear that up.
Perfect. Any additional questions on this one?
No.
Seeing none, any general public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
We'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amendment change as stated number 3 on our regular agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt regular agenda item number 3. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0. 4 was tabled, and we have regular agenda item number 5. This is to receive the recommendation proposals for further negotiation or award of a contract related to an RFP for retirement fund record keeping. Robert, if you want to go over the results of the recommendation committee's recommendation.
All right, Robert Baxter, Purchasing Manager. We had 7 proposals submitted for the record keeper. The Benefits Committee worked in conjunction with Soltis Financial Advisors to do an analysis on all 7 of the proposals. From that, the committee came up with 4 finalists to bring in to give presentations. They worked further with Soltis, and they're here if you want to speak to any of the details or the specifics of the analysis or the or the selection that was made, and then came up with the 3 recommendations for you to choose from. So I guess Ralph from the committee or Soltis can speak to any questions you have. I would like to say that in this process, as painful as these RFP processes can be, I think the result is going to be that we're going to get a better plan or a deal for county employees than we had before. So I think it was well worth the effort to go through this process.
I agree with that. I think that anytime we do this, it helps to sharpen pencils and sharpen everything into the point of some clarification. So I appreciate the committee's work in doing it. My assistant was on that committee, and he was in essence reporting back to the commissioners anything that was there. And so I thank the committee for what they did.
And it's going to save the employees some money as well.
Right, that's always a good thing.
So I've got, I don't disagree with what's been said. Got a vastly different opinion. Not on this process. The process is good. My problem is there was an audit done over a year ago. This is a fairly new committee. It's overturned. There was an audit done that some of these funds, and let's keep in mind, this is not county money. This is county employee money. This is your own personal funds. There was an audit done on the funds that are kept to pay these things, in which several $100,000 are supposed to be repaid to county employees. That still hasn't been done. We're not talking taxpayer monies, we're talking their individual money. This is my other problem with this process, is the number 2 on here, it's my understanding, but now I read through everybody's rankings. These were very tight between number 1 and number 2. 2 very good companies. Number 2 had some technology advances, and then what everybody else's comments kind of led to and said, well, number 1, we're hoping their upgrade will meet that. And in talking to a couple of the committee members, sometimes we stick with our current because it's too painful to change. And the biggest reason I got given for sticking with Prudential in this case was if an employee leaves Utah County and goes to another place, it's a lot harder to transfer their 401k money from Prudential to someone else. That to me is an important factor. Here's my problem with Prudential. I think it's time for the employees and everybody to know how we got to Prudential. Prudential was selected as our current one without having the recommendation of our record keeper, or our recommendation of our benefits coordinator or whatever Soltis has taken the place of. They were not recommended by them. It was pushed by a commissioner who Prudential then gave up some points and brought in somebody who this county thinks represents Prudential, but actually doesn't to the county employees, and has had complaints because they're sometimes pitching products that aren't Prudential, and Prudential, with all of the bigness of their financial institution, gave up some, in my opinion, integrity to land the business with Utah County after not being the selection of the group or the benefits person, because a commissioner did it, at which time that person, by the way, that got given that business, contributed to a campaign of that said commissioner. So I don't know how I can trust for the employees their money to go to somebody with that past in their integrity. It's the reason why I voted to bring Soltis here. To me, voting for number 2 is the completion of that process. I stated that last summer, why I brought Soltis here. It wasn't because the other company actually, that Soltis beat out, actually said and said all this against Prudential, but the commission ignored it. And my problem is they didn't use their voice bigger, because this is not county money. This is the integrity for 1,000 employees that contribute for their retirement. For that, I'm offended. And I know the committee, when I talked to a couple people, they had no idea of the background of this. Again, it is turned over. But the employees should be demanding their money back from this account because the commission ordered that. The commission asked for it because, again, and then for me, Prudential has already tipped their hand on their integrity level. So for me, I'm an absolute no for Prudential. Based on how close it was, I would support Voya. And again, reading both of them, I don't think there's a wrong choice. So for me, that's why the integrity tips it for me.
I think it'd be important to, you said commissioner, which can imply either one of us.
No.
Up here. So I wanna make
Previous
sure-
commissioners,
There we go.
absolutely.
Okay, I wanna make
Previous
sure-
commissioners, nobody currently serving. This was done many years ago. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity to clarify.
Ralph Barnes, HR. So yes, yes, Greg, you are exactly correct, or, sorry, Commissioner.
No, Greg's fine.
Yeah, Commissioner Graves. The committee was not aware of the backstory on that information. I do think that the process was good, as you mentioned, and I do think that the members of the, committee and, Soltis did a really good job in evaluating the information that we had. I do think it would be good if Soltis had an opportunity just to review
Sure.
each one of the candidates here in this
Absolutely.
meeting so that we could make a better informed decision.
Be great.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this can be a public document,
Public
right?
document.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good morning, Commissioners. I love being at this meeting. I do. I don't know. Sorry. I just feel patriotic, and I don't get that every day, so thank you. A couple comments, and I'll let Lindsay. Lindsay did a lot of the work with the committee to go through some of the data. I'll make a couple of comments to Commissioner Graves' discussion, because I think on some of those things you're well heard, sir. And with speaking to the Prudential rep that was here and was doing education, we were uncomfortable with that. That was not disclosed to us
Right.
During that audit time. At this point in time, we have talked to Prudential and have requested that none of the compensation from this plan go to him in any way, shape, or form. And if the commissioners and the county so wanted him to be engaged, which I don't think they do, but I won't speak for you, that if that's what was going to be the case, that the county pay him directly, and that there be no use of any of the.
See, and my problem with that is Prudential gave that up the first time. It's, again, from him to ask, agreed, problem, right? But Prudential, trusted with employees' money, my retirement money, everybody else's retirement money, gave that up willingly just to get business.
And I can't speak to the decision that was made at that time, obviously, and so we weren't here. We're not comfortable with that relationship. We've said that many, many times. We want that relationship to go away. And that's what's been done through this process in eliminating that and him in that role, because that we don't feel like that was a great situation, if I can put it that way.
Sure. I think I've made that pretty abundant.
Yeah.
Clear.
And so there were significant fees in this process that Prudential was able to come down to. We know Prudential from other plans. This is not the first time we've worked with Prudential. It was very close between Prudential and Voya. And some of, Lindsay can go through the reports that you have in front of you on some of the nitty-gritty if you'd like to. But that being said, this isn't the first time we've worked with Prudential. We have eliminated that situation that occurred, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, let me state it loud and clear that Soltis will be here as an advocate for and in behalf of those employees and only those
Right.
employees. And so things like that going on in the future, will,
Right, which is why you were an easy choice for me.
That's the reason why we
Absolutely.
hired.
Why you're
because
here.
we
Absolutely.
Felt that.
now I understand
And
your
I've heard
frustration
that, by
that
the way.
Prudential,
Well, so-
was, I understand that
So
frustration.
there's another point
Commissioner.
of frustration for me with Prudential. In this market that has gone up huge, right? Prudential has 3 tiers that, to keep it simple for everybody, they have an aggressive, a moderate, and a long-term plan, right? That the employees are offered. I'm in the aggressive plan because I always knew whether I'm here for 1 term or 2 terms, it doesn't really, it's not a long-term retirement plan for me. I contributed at the max rate. I made $849 on many thousands of dollars. In my Northwest Mutual account, I beat the living tar out of that. That's my problem. So when I look at the yield and the return on some of these two, 1% doesn't sound like a lot to people, but 1% in retirement over a lot of years, as you know, is a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing to me. Am I willing to give up, would I be willing to give up a little more on the fees for somebody who their yield, their rate on return is better? And for me, it is. So that's where I come from. I don't know that, it's hard for me to speak for 1,000 employees because they have so many different things. This isn't a decision for Utah County. This is a decision for the Utah County members, the employees that serve Utah County. That's why this one's tough for me.
So Prudential and Voya will be monitoring the performance of what's in Prudential. Prudential does not have authority over that. If funds are not keeping up and performing with like benchmarks, they will put on watch and will present to the committee to remove those funds and go and get best of class. So what you're experiencing in underperformance, that we would argue that doesn't have as much to do with Prudential or Voya, that has to do with the committee and Soltis in terms of finding best in class and putting best in class into the investment lineup for those participants.
I'd really like to know what, and you can speak to this, my main question here would be, what gave, in the end, with them being fairly close, what gave Prudential the advantage to receive the #1 position in the recommendation?
Yeah, if you'll turn to the last page of that analysis on page 4, it will have the scorecard criteria. So we took the criteria that was set out by the committee into those 3 brackets and broke it down into 3 different categories. So you'll see 1, 1A, 2, 2A, 3, 3A. Ultimately, it's down to the very nitty gritty. Where Prudential has a little bit of the edge is on the implementation process, right? It's
Because they're already here.
Because they're already here.
See, and that was my other offense, and so I want you to speak to that because, quite honestly, since I've been here, we've turned over to you guys, and everybody said, "Oh, we got pushback because, well, it's going to be hard to change." We got pushback on selecting Gallagher. By the way, I have not heard from one employee or one person that works with you guys and or Gallagher that hasn't applauded and appreciated the commission's decision to move in that direction. So changing implementation, if you change that and they had an even score because of the ease, that's why they didn't get that. If you drop that 1 point, Voya wins on your scorecard.
Correct.
One other thing I'll note, and it's on page 3, and this gets a little into some minutia, but
Right.
I think it's well worth it if
Bips
you'd
and-
like to.
yeah.
Voya scores well on their fee, right? Better than Prudential. But when we look past that, and we look at some of the what's called stable value, or basically some of where you hold more of a cash-like investment, Prudential actually has a pretty significant higher return there, with not as many restrictions on how long you have to hold there. Commissioner Ivey?
So I think that's a valid point.
Yeah.
My question would be, and you may or may not know the answer to this, as a general investment from countywide employees, how many people does that affect? Are we talking,
So
90%, half of them?
approximately 20% of the assets are in stable value currently.
Okay.
And that's why we really zeroed in there, because it wasn't a 2%, a 1%. It was 20% of the
Super
assets. There's a large percentage of the county employees that are holding that. So that becomes a very important investment that we hold. And so
So is there a way for you to know, by the way, on that 20%? I'd be curious because we have 28% of our employees are eligible and beyond the years of service for retirement. I'd be curious to find out if that 20% is all contained in that. And I'm sure it's not statistically, that's not possible, but I'm curious to find that.
We can find that out and get that back. What the demographic looks like of that stable value holding. We don't have that data here today, but we can get that data.
One thing to mention, so actually currently Prudential is the one that is dictating the investment allocations in the goal maker portfolios that you were referring to. So those do have a slightly higher allocation to stable value. So anyone that's in a goal maker is going to be in the stable value accounts, which I believe it's about 30% of the employees that are in goal makers. So as a populace, you can see that.
And then another question to ask you guys on these score sheets. It's my understanding, and again, we had a representation, Commissioner Lee's assistant for the commission. It's my understanding that during the first presentations, Voya came in, and if we're talking actual cost to the employees, we actually weren't even close, but because they came in and said, this is our final and best, the committee then sent back to everybody else. So if we're actually scoring off the first sheets, Voya wins handily until Prudential comes back, which Voya also reduced. I mean, they all did, but the scorecard looks completely, and that's the hard point. That's why this integrity issue for Prudential tips me this other way. Plus, like I say, with the changes that happened with you guys. And so anyway.
Yeah, I would just say to go along with that, we took the weightings that were set out by the,
right.
on the RFP
I know
process.
you guys did.
So that part. And then if you take the stable value basis points that employees would lose on return and add that, it actually makes Prudential and Voya very similar in cost.
And that's to be honest, Commissioner Graves, when we did, that's what
Tipped it for you.
is because the fee differential, when you looked at the stable value, was nullified, and then so the actual scoring is even adjusted slightly upward for Prudential. It's not lost on us. We hear what you're saying,
Sure.
and I think I'll state it here on Soltis's behalf. We're aware of that. We're not comfortable with some of those things that Prudential did, and we'll be fully cognizant of that going forward.
And I think
Can I ask you-
employees
can I
are
ask you
well
a question?
represented by having you here, quite honestly.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And this will be an unfair question, so I'm just going to make sure and mention that before. Because you, besides Utah County being one of your clients, you have many other clients, and I'm sure you work with both these companies. But given the circumstances that you know with Utah County, who would you prefer that we work with and you work with as well?
Our recommendation is still Prudential.
And you feel you've adequately addressed the concerns?
We're very much aware of them, and we'll continue to hold that in. Commissioner Graves, I'll tell you, Soltis has a long-term memory, and we'll continue to hold that.
Well, and it does actually still give me comfort, and for the employees, I think they should seek comfort in the fact that I do trust you guys, and with your recommendation that way, I can get on board knowing that's the case, knowing that that's there. I would ask Soltis, because I do know the long history and your integrity, that you would also seek to help that committee find ways to redistribute that cost money that should be returned to the employees, quite honestly, immediately, because that's what our audit proved and showed, because in essence, we've illegally gathered too many funds and we've held the employees' funds. And so, not well before you guys were here. So I appreciate your guys' work, and I'm so glad to have you guys here.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We
Thank you all.
expect you to be our gatekeeper.
Yeah.
I'll add one last comment. We're not afraid to change record keepers. We change record keepers a lot for our clients.
Sure.
And so I don't want that for you to think that Soltis is afraid of that. I think in our presentation we talked about how many we actually went through with our clients, and so that I'll say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. All right. Oh, can we get your names for the record, please?
Lindsay Lewis with Soltis.
Brent Moore with Soltis, and I just do what Lindsay says. So
Wise. All right.
Put that in the
Any
minutes and send that to
additional-
Lindsay.
Would there be any additional public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it up here for any further discussion or a motion.
I'm ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you to Soltis and the committee for your work. I'm glad we go through these processes, and I'm glad I was able to share with the employees the stuff that's been eating me up for a year on this.
And they're very valid.
They
I mean,
are.
We've been dealing with
And the
that for some
commission,
time.
it's not been me. The whole
Yeah.
commission has been united in this. I just felt the need to say that.
I was
So,
actually a little surprised,
yes,
but anyway,
yeah.
hopefully pleasantly.
So I will then move that we receive the recommended proposal and select Prudential as the retirement fund record keepers in number 5.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to receive Prudential as a recommended proposal as stated in regular agenda item number 5. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion will carry 3-0. And we will now go ahead and set our closed meetings. We will need personnel and litigation.
Let's see. I'll make a motion then that we strike number 7 and number 8.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to strike regular agenda items number 7. and 8.
Actually, yeah, no, sorry. Sorry, yes, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual or individuals at today's date at this location following the completion of our regular agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting as stated in regular agenda item number 9. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss the pending or reasonable imminent litigation at today's date at this location following the completion of our regular agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 10. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0. There were no work session items submitted. Is there any general public comment? Seeing none, we thank you for your participation. We'll move to our closed meetings.